Dating back to the beginning of the preseason, I've gotten a lot of comments about the Bills signing Jabrill Peppers, with the safety room still being a major area of concern on the defensive side of the football. And I'm not going to act like the Bills' performance in Week 1 against Baltimore was perfect by any means, because it was not. And that safety depth chart, it's still a major question mark for me. So on today's edition of the Bills Breakdown, we're going to discuss the Bills potentially signing Jabrill Peppers this upcoming season. But before we do, get down below and get hyped for the Week 1 win. If you're still hyped about the Week 1 win, a miracle in Highmark, go down below, smash the thumbs up icon, like today's video, and show Bills Mafia that we're all hyped up about starting 1-0. Alrighty, Taylor Rapp. Not a good performance in Week 1. And this was the safety in the Bills room that we were probably more, or I guess I should say less concerned about heading into this season, rather than a guy like Cole Bishop, who is coming back from injury, a year 2 player, very young. We thought that Rapp would be the more consistent veteran presence, but he was atrocious in this game against the Ravens. And look, I get it. You're playing one of the league's most stacked offenses in Baltimore, so it's going to be a tough assignment. But look at this run that Derrick Henry had. This is before the ball was snapped, and we're going to look at Taylor Rapp right here. Then we're going to see the ball snapped. Taylor Rapp, where are you going? The whole play is going this way, and you're going that way. Your whole body is flipped. What is that? And then by the time that Derrick Henry, that he notices that Derrick Henry is running towards his side of the football field, and by the way, Tex, if we could go back to that last photo real quick, I don't know, there's no reason for him to be running the other side of the field, because Cole Bishop already has that side of the field locked up. You could see him all the way over there. It's my green screen gets my hand cut off, but you could see him all the way on the left side. Cole Bishop has that side covered. Why are you even turning your body this way? And then if we go to where Derrick Henry is already past Taylor Rapp, Rapp put his foot in the ground and then took a terrible angle at Derrick Henry that way. So he already busted this for a 40-plus yard touchdown, and that was just a bad run defensive rep by Taylor Rapp there. And I know it's a microcosm. We're not going to boil it all down to one rep, right? But he was also really late on helping over the top on that DeAndre Hopkins touchdown. And credit to Hopkins. He made an excellent catch. I didn't even think it was the worst coverage in the world by the cornerback guarding him. But that could have been entirely avoided, and the pass could have been broken up if Rapp was a little bit earlier to the play. And I don't want to harp on Rapp completely here. He was the Bills' lowest graded defender in Week 1 with a 29.6 grade. That is atrocious. But Cole Bishop is not blameless either. He was pretty rough in a couple areas. He got stiff-armed into the dirt by Derrick Henry. And I'm not saying that that's something that's incredibly unique. No, Derrick Henry does that to his fair share of defenders. But there are question marks big time in this safety room. I'm not confident that we can potentially win a Super Bowl if this is our starting duo back there. And there's a guy who graded out really, really well in a lot of areas last season, sitting on the free agency market for virtually no reason. And who knows, maybe it could be for a reason, but Jabrill Peppers is out there for the taking, and the Bills should strike while the iron is hot. I don't think it's going to be too long before Jabrill Peppers is on an NFL roster, and to be frank with you, a lot of people in the Patriots community are very concerned with, or not concerned, or confused with why he actually ended up getting cut right before the season. He was one of their most productive players on the defensive side last year. He graded out plus 80 in pass coverage last season. And he was also above average. I think he had about a 74 grade in the run defense category last year. I don't think Taylor Rapp or Cole Bishop will even touch those grades or come close to them this upcoming season. Jabrill Peppers is an absolute player who can make differences on the football field, man. He can create turnovers, and he's just a guy who flies around the field. You can play him in the box. You can play him over the top. He's an athlete. I know he's 29 years old. He's heading into what would be, I believe, his 9th or 10th season at this point. But clearly what we've seen from last year's numbers, he still has got a lot in the tank. And yeah, he only played 6 games. He was limited due to injury. Is that a big-time concern that the Patriots had heading into this year? Maybe so. But Jabrill Peppers is pretty confident in his ability, off of that injury and at this stage in his career. Here's what he had to say on Twitter. Going on 9 years in this league, I've had 7 head coaches and 6 defensive coordinators. LOL. There is no scheme that you can place me in where I won't find a way to be effective. So he's going to be able to go out there and play no matter how you drop him in to coverage, whether it's in the box, whether it's over the top, whether it's even along the line of scrimmage. He can make an impact there as well. So the Bills should absolutely go out there and sign Jabrill Peppers. But the issue is, we know the Bills don't really have a lot of money open to spend right now. They just had to restructure Deion Dawkins' contract in order to get under the salary cap. They were one of the only teams, if not the only team in the NFL, that was over the salary cap heading into the season, and there's still probably work to be done in the form of restructures and extensions that need to free up more money just for Buffalo to be able to operate at all this season. And look, I think Peppers probably could demand a decent-sized contract this year for whoever wants to go out there and pay him, because we saw the numbers last year. He was really, really good. And look, I think the Bills right now have one of the worst safety tandems in the entire NFL, and signing a guy like Jabrill Peppers to at least take the snaps of a guy like Damar Hamlin away, that would probably bode well for Buffalo on the back end of their defense. What do you guys think? Be Brandon Beane from me, and don't just take my advice, or because I said the Bills should definitely sign him. You decide down in the comment section. Should the Bills sign Jabrill Peppers? S for sign, P for pass. What does the Mafia think? Let me know. We're going to get to in more Bills rumors in just a moment, but first, get hooked up with our proud sponsor, PrizePicks. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this season on PrizePicks, where it's good to be right. Now, take it from me, I've been a PrizePicks customer way longer than they've even been a sponsor here at Chat Sports. I've won over $10,000 playing PrizePicks. You can win up to 2,000 times your money on just one entry watching your Buffalo Bills this season. All you guys got to do is pick a lineup of 2 to 6 players and just pick more or less on their projected stats. PrizePicks always wants to make it easier for you guys to win real money in real time, so they offer awesome deals, like a free $50 in lineups instantly when you play your first $5 lineup and use our promo code CLNS, like you see in the bottom right of your screen, when you sign up. That's code CLNS for $50 in lineups instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. Here's the lineup for week 2 of the pro football slate. I got Cooper Kupp more than 37.5 receiving yards. I got Corliss Washington more than for 3.5 punts for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then Jackson Smith-Njigba more than a half a rushing or receiving touchdown. Look, I had some intel on this slate, so you might want to tail it. You can do that on PrizePicks. Download the app today and use the promo code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. It's good to be right. Brandon Beane did it again. Brandon Beane committed highway robbery in the 2025 NFL Draft with the selections of Jackson Hawes and Dorian Strong there. 172 picks into the damn thing. At pick 173, tight end Jackson Hawes was selected. At pick 177, just 5 picks later, Dorian Strong, the cornerback out of Virginia Tech, who was slated to start in the place of Tre'Davious White in week 1, he was selected by the Buffalo Bills. And both these guys made major contributions in week 1. An unreal catch from Jackson Hawes at the goal line. 29-yard rip from Josh Allen on 1st and 10 as the Bills were trying to complete their comeback. And he brought it in, man, after a little bit of bobbling, after Nate Wiggins draped all over his back. Hawes brings it in. And keep in mind, this is a guy who was brought in from the draft primarily as a blocking tight end. Now you see him making a play vertically down the field. This guy could be a hidden X factor for your Bills when you consider what he does in multiple facets of the game. If he could be an actual reliable receiver, and I'm not saying that he needs to be, a 1,000-yard guy, a 500-yard guy at all, but if you can get an additional 300, 400 yards out of a Jackson Hawes at some point, like, my goodness, that would do wonders for the Bills, who were so tied up financially, as we already previously mentioned. He had a 73.9 run block grade as well in 13 run blocking snaps against the Ravens, and we know that they have one of the most formidable fronts in the NFL, so very, very impressive to see Jackson Hawes already making an impact both in the run game, where we knew he would be, and in the vertical passing game. Only 1 reception in that game, but it was a big one that put the Bills on the goal line and set up a Josh Allen touchdown. Also, Dorian Strong, excellent stuff in week 1. Look, there were a lot of concerns about this Bills cornerback room, and rightfully so, right? You got an aging Tre'Davious White, who was injured often last season and the year before, and then he gets injured in training camp and misses week 1. And that left the Bills with an unproven talent in Dorian Strong, starting alongside Christian Benford and Taron Johnson. Johnson was one of the highest-graded Bills defenders in week 1, by the way. But Dorian Strong played 100% of the Bills' defensive snaps on Sunday night. Lance Lanowski says it's a solid debut for the 6th-round pick. His defensive holding penalty was an iffy call. And then Next Gen Stats had him at 0 receptions allowed in the 41-40 win. So that is awesome news. So you play 100% of the defensive snaps and you allow 0 receptions. I mean, is there more of a highway robbery to be had in week 1 around the NFL? Name me another day 3 pick that played 100% of defensive snaps and did their job 100% of the time. Dorian Strong said, I felt like I had a good game. Yes, you did. Yes, you did, my friend. Now, I won't say it was a perfect game because this wasn't attributed to Dorian Strong by any means, but there was some miscommunication on defense when Zay Flowers came across the field in motion and then had that big 30-yard gain. Dorian Strong was probably the guy who had that responsibility there, but he also might have gotten tangled up with another defender, and there was just a whole miscommunication by the defensive play calling there on that and what they were supposed to adjust to on that motion. So can't 100% be attributed to Dorian Strong on that play. That's why PFF didn't give it to him, but it probably was his responsibility. That's something that we can easily clean up as the season goes along. And that gets me a little bit more excited about this Bills cornerback depth chart. As we know, Maxwell Harrison here is going to be missing at least the first 4 games of the season on injured reserve. And you have Tre'Davious White hopefully returning in week 2. And now you have some serious depth if Dorian Strong can be a player for you. That was not a bad receiving core by any means in week 1. And you think about who the Bills are playing in week 2, the Jets and their passing offense. It looked good in week 1 against the Pittsburgh Steelers, but I can't count on that being the case all season long. So, look, if you're playing that kind of a weaker offense, much weaker offense, we know, than the Ravens, even though the Jets did put up 32 points in week 1, look, I would go out there and start Dorian Strong week 2. Even if Trey White can go, like, how confident are we in him playing a super large portion of the defensive snaps after coming back from injury and, not playing for a long time at this point? So I would start Dorian Strong. He showed you enough to me in week 1 that he deserves to continue getting snaps out there on the boundary. So I would be all for giving him the nod in week 2 against a much inferior New York Jets offense. Pick one to start, though. If you're a Trey White homer, if you're a member of the Goalie Academy, get down in the comment section. Type TW if you would still start him as the boundary CB2 in week 2, or if you would start Dorian Strong, give me a DS down in the comment section, and we'll duke it out. We'll argue over who should be starting at a crucial, critical spot on this Bills defense. Still can't get over that win, man. Oh, my goodness. It's unbelievable. And I'm hearing a lot of discourse in the office today about, this thing's got to go this way. This thing's got to go that way. A lot of luck's involved. Bills would have never been in that spot to win the game if they didn't force the fumble on Derrick Henry. We're dealing with a lot of ifs, and we're dealing with a lot of hypotheticals that, frankly, I just don't give a shit about. This is my whole take with the Buffalo Bills, and this kind of is how it is always. The Bills, like, if you look at the way that they won that game last night, it's a microcosm of how the Bills win football games. The Buffalo Bills, with Josh Allen at the helm, are going to be an imperfect football team. They are going to have holes on the roster. Specifically, going to have holes in the defense because you already have a guy in Josh Allen who can mask a lot of the issues that you have on the other side of the ball. So you're going to let up a lot of points. And there's going to be crazy things happening. The Bills are going to win a lot of football games. So how do those two things merge? The Bills are going to win football games in ridiculous ways, and you guys just have to live with that. America has to understand that just because the Bills might have an inferior roster, they might have more holes in the defense, they might allow a fuckload of points over the course of 60 minutes. But as long as you have 17 under center, anything's possible. And the Bills are probably going to come out of those games more often than not the victor. So get used to it. The Bills, when they win football games, it's going to be in ridiculous fashion. It's not always going to be in barn-burning ridiculous fashion like we saw in week 1 against the Ravens. Could be something a whole lot different in week 2 against the Jets in a muddier game script than the high-flying offense that we saw in week 1. But the Bills, they're going to win games one way or another. It's just always going to be in ridiculous fashion. Things are going to go crazy. There's going to be luck involved, and that's just the way it is. And that's the way it's going to be as long as Josh Allen's at the helm. If you guys are still hyped about that week 1 win like I am, go down below, hit the like button, smash that like button like it's a table in the Orchard Park grass slots, and give me a follow over on Twitter. We can keep talking Bills all season long at Tyler J. Smith. 2 H's because the name's common, but I am not. And make sure you are subscribed to the Bills Breakdown because we're giving you guys the best Bills coverage on YouTube all season long. We'll see you guys in the next one. And as always, let's go, Buffalo.